Well, hello! My name is Jules, and I'm from Manitoba. That's in the country of Canada. Canada is just north of these United States, and I am a friend of Pastor Bill's. I'm sitting here in his dining room with flowers. I met Pastor Bill in a cooking class. We were learning how to make soufflés. Mine was just divine, light and fluffy. It was quite beautiful. But Pastor Bill's, well, he doesn't like to talk about his soufflé because it was terrible. It fell, it burned. Such a shame. But enough of that. I'm here to introduce to you today's Sunday School, which will be the story of when Jesus took 5 little barley loaves and 2 little fishes and fed lots and lots and lots of people. So now Pastor Bill will tell that story, and when it's over, it'll come back to me. Take it away, Pastor Bill.
Good morning, boys and girls, and thank you, Jules. My name is Bill Ingraham. I have the honor of serving First Church Congregational of Methuen, Massachusetts, United Church of Christ as senior pastor. This is the house where I live. Jules was speaking from right inside this corner window in the dining room, and now it's my turn to share with you today's Bible story. It's a story of Jesus feeding thousands of people, but the story actually starts when Jesus got some really sad news. He found out that John the Baptist, who was his cousin and his friend, had just been killed, and it made him so sad. The only thing Jesus could think to do was to go off and be by himself, so he got in a boat to go to the other side of the lake so that he could have alone time and quiet time. But when he got to the other side, there was a huge crowd when he went ashore. And so he got out of the boat and went, and he ministered to the crowd. He healed people. He spoke to them. He loved and cared for them. I'm going to move over closer to the church to tell the next part of the story. So Jesus had gone ashore, and he had found there thousands of people who needed healing, people who were seeking wholeness of body and mind and spirit. And so he had compassion on them, as he always did. And he started laying on hands, healing the sick and the people whose bodies were broken in one way or another, whose hearts were broken in one way or another, whose minds were struggling. He offered them healing and spent all day long doing it. Can you imagine how exhausted Jesus must have been, offering healing and wholeness to a crowd of thousands of people at a time when what he really wanted was to go off and be by himself and grieve the loss of his beloved cousin John? When the end of the day came, the disciples were worried because there wasn't much food to feed this huge crowd. And so they said to Jesus, please send these people home so they can get something to eat. And Jesus said, we don't need to send them home. You give them something to eat. The disciples said, Jesus, we don't have anything but 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. What is it to feed this huge crowd of people? It says that Jesus asked them to give the bread and the fish to him. He ordered the crowd to sit down, this huge crowd of people. Can you imagine the sound of thousands of people sitting down on the grass on the seashore? I can imagine the shuffle, and they're getting quiet. And then he took the bread and the fish and he gave thanks to God. He broke the bread and handed it to his disciples and told them to go out and feed the crowd. And they went and they fed everybody. And when it was over, there was so much left over that they gathered up 12 baskets full of leftovers. And the scripture says of the crowd, there were 5,000 men, not counting women and children. That's a funny thing to say, isn't it? Not counting women and children. Who doesn't count women and children? Women and children count. But it's a way of the Bible to say this crowd was much bigger than the 5,000 they're mentioning. Imagine if there were 5,000 men, how many women, how many children, how many young people, how many old people, how huge this crowd must have been that Jesus had been ministering to and then had offered food to. So as we end the story, I want to ask you to think about a couple of things. First of all, if you were looking for Jesus, would you wander out into the wilderness? Would you be that dedicated to try to find him? And for what healing would you go to Jesus? Healing for yourself? Healing for another person? Would it be for physical healing, maybe of an illness or a cancer or a broken bone or some sort of disabled part of your body? Would it be for a healing of the heart or of the soul? Maybe sadness or loneliness or worry or doubt? What would be the thing you would take to Jesus in seeking healing? And then think about the evening. You've been there all day long watching all these different people getting healed. Maybe you yourself getting healed or the person you brought for healing getting healed. It's end of the day and you and everyone else in the crowd, there's hunger and you're hungry, wanting something to eat. How would it feel to see Jesus take 5 loaves and 2 fish and offer them in a prayer to God and then start handing them out? And as the food came to you, and by some miracle there was enough food for you to eat and everyone around you to eat and everyone else to eat and be full, what would that feel like? What would you think when that happened? And as you went away and went home, what about that day would you tell somebody else? That's the Bible story from today, from the Gospel of Matthew, the 14th chapter, the feeding of the 5,000. I'm now going to hand the story back over to Jules in the parsonage dining room so that he can finish off our lesson for today. I look forward to seeing you next week on Sunday School at First Church Congregational.
Oh, welcome back, Pastor Bill. Thank you for that story. It was so very interesting. I learned a lot. Well, children, I'm now going to end the lesson by singing to you the national anthem of my country, Canada. It goes like this. O Canada, my home and native land, la 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 la, la 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 la. Just stop there. I don't always remember all the words. Anyway, boys and girls, this has been Sunday School of First Church Congregational of Methuen, Massachusetts, United Church of Christ. On behalf of Pastor Bill and all of the members of the church, I want to say thank you for attending today. Tune in next week at 11 o'clock on Facebook and on YouTube to see the next episode of Sunday School at First Church. Thank you. Goodbye. Toodaloo.